If you could do it all over again, would you have married me? Ah, the elusive soulmate, that perfect someone who completes you, understands you, and never forgets to clean up after you. We're talking about the mythical creature known as the One. But today we're going to bust that soulmate myth because it might not be what you think, and this perspective may help save your relationship. Now, recently someone asked me what the secret to marriage is. Well, big disclaimer, I'm no relationship expert, but I have been married to my wife Cecilia for over 23 years, and living with someone for over 2 decades, you learn a lot. And the first thing you learn is it ain't easy, especially for my wife. I mean, look at these lines on my face. I'm no picnic to be around at times. So I started to think about it. What is it that's kept us together? Now, I remember before I first started on my spiritual path that I would search for that perfect someone who I would completely fall for. That amazing feeling you just couldn't get enough of that person. The nonstop talking on the phone for hours, the electric chemistry, she could do no wrong. And then sooner or later, it would fizzle and die. Sometimes a horrible death. You know what I'm talking about, right, guys? The questions you loved in the beginning, like, do you want something to eat? Where are you going? Do you want a back massage? Do I look fat? Do you still love me? All started to get on your nerves. And those cute eating noises that you thought were so adorable when you first started dating now drive you stark raving mad. So we'd break up and I would get back on the hunt looking for the next one. And I would find her and it would be amazing. And then sooner or later, it too would fizzle and die the same way. Now, when the movie Jerry Maguire came out, it was a box office smash. That famous line, "You complete me." If you don't know the movie, Tom Cruise plays Jerry Maguire and Renee Zellweger plays Dorothy. Now, Jerry's a sports agent who loses his job, and during this time he meets Dorothy, and the whole movie is about him sitting on the fence about this relationship because he's so focused on making the money. So poor Dorothy dumps the guy. Then one day he finally makes the money. He looks around and sees everybody else has a girl except him, and he starts missing his Dorothy. So he runs to her. He says, "I want you back. I made a mistake. You complete me." Now, in real life, what the movie doesn't show is that 2 years later, Jerry loses his job again and goes right back to ignoring Dorothy and chasing the money. She finally wakes up to the years of emotional abandonment and divorces the guy. Jerry then finds another woman and does the exact same thing all over again. Now, I can't say I was any better than Jerry because for years that was me. I was always looking for someone to complete me, and when I got married, it was no different. I thought I found the perfect person. She was beautiful. She was funny. We had so many things in common, so I pulled the trigger. Then quickly things started to change, and just like my past relationships, everything she did started getting on my nerves, especially when things in life went sideways. The first person I would shut out was her. Now, I resigned to the fact that I spent most of my life on my own, never having to answer to anybody, and now I'm living in the same house with someone else. But that wasn't it. There was something deeper that I was missing. And it wasn't until I started to progress on my spiritual path that I realized I didn't really care about my wife at all. I placed more importance on wanting my own desires, my own emotions and urges satisfied. And if they weren't, then I would start to doubt the relationship. Like it states in Falun Gong, nowadays people consider emotion really important, yet emotion is one of the most unreliable things. When you're nice to me, I'm happy. And when you're no longer nice to me, the feeling is gone. Then how could you count on that thing? Could emotional ties sustain a marriage? With human beings, there's not just moral obligation involved, but also between man and wife, you are indebted to each other. So in terms of the woman, when she has put her whole life in your hands, the man should realize this woman has entrusted her whole life to me. I have to be responsible for her. And as a woman, you in turn need to be understanding of your man. The sense of indebtedness that a husband and wife have for each other is something people don't recognize or value today. You should each be considerate of one another, and with that, how could you talk about divorce? Marriage should be something unbreakable. I then came across a story from ancient China that hit it on the head. Liu Tingxi was a famous scholar in the Song dynasty. In his youth, Lou knew a girl in his hometown who he liked very much. They both came from poor families. Now, Lou was leaving town to study for the imperial exams, and before he left, he had given his promise to marry her upon his return. Years went by, and Lou passed the exam and became a government official. Upon his return, he learned that the woman had become totally blind from illness. Because Lou had become such a success, the lady's parents felt she was not worthy of marrying him. Lou's friends also tried hard to convince him to find someone else for the sake of his career and future family life. However, Lou stated, "When I proposed to her, I had already given her my heart. She may be blind, but her heart is good. If I break my promise, then it's my heart that must be warped." So they got married, and together they raised several children. They had a happy life, and they loved each other very much. Now, what touched me most about this story was Lou's selflessness. He genuinely thought about the other person before himself, unlike Jerry and unlike me. Now, growing up in modern culture, we've lost that honor and dedication that Lou had. We don't have that sense of gratefulness and indebtedness that Falun Gong teaches. Instead, we've been inundated and brainwashed with that notion of romantic love, the longing, the butterflies, the belief that our soulmate is out there for us and will change our lives forever. Fireworks and trips to the Riviera until death do us part. Yeah, that stuff is great, but how can it possibly last? To think those amazing feelings should last forever and ever is insane. And unfortunately, in no time, love at first sight turns into get out of my sight. Why? Because it's all about me. My entire relationship was based on selfishness. I looked for that perfect soulmate to satisfy myself, what I want. And that selfishness ran so deep, I didn't even realize it was there. I had no thoughtfulness towards my wife whatsoever. Now, I might have fooled myself to believe I did, but in reality, I didn't care much at all, because as soon as my feelings started to change and she fell off that pedestal, I started looking for the exits. And I'm still learning the hard truth that real love is action, man. It's not just sitting back and building resentment because you feel the person owes you something. It's a choice between two people, a fierce commitment to show up for each other and do the work. There's no infatuation. There's no game playing. It's no getting carried away with ecstatic high and low emotions. And because of my spiritual path, I now firmly believe that a soulmate, that mate for my soul, my wife, was predestined to be with me for my spiritual path. She's not someone who's supposed to make me feel comfortable all the time. She's there to help push those buttons hard, so I'm forced to look inside myself and find those deep attachments that trigger me so I can eliminate them and get closer to my true self. Because the truth is, if I didn't have those attachments in me, I wouldn't be triggered in the first place. And it ain't easy. It's not supposed to be. It's uncomfortable because those attachments are our addictions. And the uncomfortableness needs to happen not just for my relationship, but for the ascension of my soul. And most of all, through my practice of Falun Gong, I learned to remember the impermanence of life, and not only what it means to be spiritual, but also what it means to be human. Every once in a while, I catch a glimpse of my wife when she's not aware of it, and I observe the innocence of who she really is, her own spirit, a living, breathing human being who deserves to be her own entity and who wants to be happy, and someone who one day will pass away, just like the rest of us. Knowing this, how could I possibly argue with her over fleeting feelings or selfishness? You know, our time here is so short. Snap my finger, I'm already pushing 60. Where did the time go? How much of it did I spend on the here and now, appreciating those in my life? How much did I waste on pride, fighting to be right, or resentful about what I wanted but never got? And the truth is, I wasted years. There's an ancient Chinese saying, it takes 100 reincarnations for two strangers to ride in the same boat. It takes 1,000 to bring two people to share the same pillow. After 23 years of marriage, she's still the one. There's no doubt in my heart that she's my true soulmate. And sure, yeah, we still fight. But I've learned that looking within to improve my own character is the cornerstone of a happy relationship. And when I have this mindset, my wife automatically gets it as well. And it all starts with my own attitude and willingness to drop that pride during disagreements and remember that unbreakable bond of predestiny, grateful indebtedness, and consideration that husbands and wives have for each other. And I think that's it right there. It's the secret of a good marriage is not about what's in it for me. It's about what I can do for my wife. Because in the end, only kindness matters. Let me know what you thought of this video. I would love to hear your relationship secrets of success in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you next time.